A very good morning to you at home and to those of you watching on the Sky Sports News YouTube channel, and of course to Michael Bridge, Emma Payton and to Mark McAdam as well. Right, to the news we brought you last night, big news involving Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Saudi Arabian club Al Nassr have offered to sign the Arsenal striker on loan until the end of the season. Arsenal fans, we want to hear from you. What do you think about it? Hashtag transfer talk at Sky Sports News. But Emma, from the Arsenal side of things, why would they accept a loan?
Look, Arsenal might be looking at this thinking we've been thrown a bit of a lifeline here. I think wages is the main thing, of course. You know, if Al Nassr can pay the wages, this is a player who's Arsenal's highest paid player. He's on £350,000 a week. It will then free up a little bit of cash. Of course, they want flexibility to sign another striker. We've been talking about Dusan Vlahovic the whole window the last few weeks. It's interesting as well because James Benge, who actually broke this story about Aubameyang on CBS last night, he said that there is an obligation to buy at the end of the loan for around £7 million. So look, we were kind of doing a little bit of quick maths this morning that if Arsenal were to get him off their books, of course he's got 18 months remaining on his contract, they're saving around £25 million in wages alone, which is a hell of a lot of money, isn't it? It's kind of mad how things have turned around so quickly. You look at, we were talking about Aubameyang at the beginning of the window 2-3 weeks ago, saying, you know, maybe he can work his way back into this Arsenal side. Of course, he was stripped of the captaincy mid-December. Mikel Arteta saying there was this disciplinary breach. I mean, I, along with a lot of people, I think, thought he'd go away to the Africa Cup of Nations. He'd kind of reset, have a really good tournament and come back a little bit refreshed. And then instead, it's just gone south, hasn't it? The fact that, you know, he's been sent home prematurely, along with Mario Lemina as well, and hasn't even played a single match out there. Interesting reading that report from James at CBS, who says that Edu and the club's hierarchy, they're yet to respond at the moment, but it is understood that they are ready to part ways with their captain and with Aubameyang. And I said a minute ago, he's the highest paid player at the club at the moment. And, you know, you've got someone who's not playing. They're kind of on the outskirts looking in at the moment. Little bit familiar to when we were talking about Mesut Ozil. Not too many windows ago now. He was their highest paid player at the club, not contributing on the pitch. And if anything, maybe a little bit of a distraction and disruption off it as well. And
it dragged on for far too long before eventually he left the football club.
With Ozil?
Yes.
I guess the only difference there is we understand that Arsenal was still subsidising a lot of his wages, where it seems like that might not be the case with Aubameyang.
Yeah, and I think, like Emma touched upon, particularly when it comes to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, is the financial side of things. And this is a real problem for Edu and Mikel Arteta, because whenever they go to the negotiation table to try and sign a new player, the first thing the agent's going to say is, well, your highest paid player is on £350,000 a week, so therefore that's what my client wants as well. He wants to be the highest paid player at Arsenal. So they have that problem whilst he's at the football club. And, of course, when they're renegotiating deals with current players, new contracts and signing new players, they're all going to be saying, well, you know, if I'm on £100,000 a week and I'm in the first team and you've got someone on £350,000 a week who's not in the first team, then the disparity is far too big. So it creates a problem when they're negotiating with other players, both internally and externally as well.
So that the only way to end that then is if he leaves the club?
Leaves the club. It just seems unbelievable that a player that was so well thought of, scoring goals, was the captain, the main man at Arsenal, given this bumper new deal, in the space of, what, a half a season, has gone from being this £60 million player on a huge amount of money to someone that potentially could leave on loan for a very, very small fee.
So I understand the Al Nassr side of things because they'd be getting a quality player. I understand Arsenal side of things because you've just explained the financial side. It could be quite good for them. But what about the player's side, Mark? Would that be an attractive move for him?
You'd have to ask Pierre himself. It feels like Emma said, he needs a reset, he needs a break, he needs to take himself out of the limelight, and going over to the Saudi Arabian Pro League would potentially do that. The eyes won't be on him, the limelight won't be on him. He'd actually walk in, if he were to go to the club, of course, Al Nassr, to third in the Pro League at the moment. They're 6 points off top, so they're actually fighting for the title themselves. And a very different lifestyle to what he's got in North London as well. And I just think if you can find a happy place for Aubameyang, you'll get the best out of him in terms of a football sense.
Well, look, listen to Mikel Arteta yesterday. He came out fighting about the postponements ahead of tonight's match against Liverpool. But he came...
Hang on a minute. I think you might not be... Oh, it actually is on. So hang on. We'll try and sort that out. I'll tell you what I'll do while they're trying to sort
You're
that.
making a really good point there.
Yeah, it is. And it's actually a very good point from Jeff, who's an Arsenal fan, who says, of course, getting Aubameyang off the wage bill, if he isn't playing or contributing, is positive. But generally speaking, the club needs to sort out the ongoing problem of buying high and selling low. Happens too much and isn't financially sustainable in the long term. But what we were saying earlier in the window, Mark, is that if you take their summer transfer window for Arsenal, they seem to be solving those problems, and maybe selling Aubameyang would be part of that.
There's been a clear shift in their philosophy in North London. They've gone from buying, like you say, expensive players, the likes of Pepe, Lacazette, Aubameyang, and they've gone much younger, which gives them two things. A player they can develop and improve and mould. And then also, if you're buying a player who's between the age of 18 and 22, in 5 years' time when they hit their peak, in theory, you can either sell them for far more than what you paid, or you've got an asset on your hands that will be an integral part of your club.
I'm kind of looking at Arsenal now as well, and you're actually sitting there wondering, does he improve them at the moment? Because if you've got a choice between him and Lacazette, I mean, Lacazette is arguably the stronger choice, isn't he? And you were saying about him wanting to go to somewhere where it would be positive and he can be happy again. At the moment, things are looking a lot better for Arsenal. There is a more kind of positive vibe around the place. So it's just whether he even fits into that at the moment.
So is there, let's say this doesn't happen, because he might not want it, it might not come up for whatever reason. On the 1st of February, if he's still officially an Arsenal player, can he turn this around? Can he still be a key player for them?
I'm more inclined now to say no. And that's what I was just saying about Lacazette. He is going to be the preferred choice going forward. I am now inclined to say, a couple of weeks ago, like I said, where I thought the Africa Cup of Nations really could have been a fresh start for him. He could have really had a great tournament and come back. But now, I almost feel like he's been exiled and there isn't a way to turn it around for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
This feels like probably the biggest play for Mikel Arteta since he became the Arsenal manager. This is, the captain, this is a big player, this is someone who's been integral to that football club for the last few years. He's very clearly nailed his colours to the mast in terms of it feels like there's no way back for Aubameyang. That's how it feels looking from the outside at this Arsenal scenario. So therefore, you're looking at the situation thinking, if he lets him back into the side and it doesn't work out or it causes more problems, then is that weakening Mikel Arteta's position? I think the most interesting thing will come from the Arsenal fans. Please get in touch. Let us know what you think. #transfer talk. Does he have a future at the football club? Because clearly the fans will give us a real indication as to what may or may not happen.
At the moment, Michael Bridge is sitting here a little bit like a good-looking backup dancer, all right? Michael, just because his mic hasn't been working, let's test it. We think
back.
Yeah. Back? Okay, right. You were about to make a really good point about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Before we move on to their midfield, what do you think about this situation?
During the Mikel Arteta press conference yesterday, he was very strong about the postponements, the North London derby in particular, and he came out fighting. But with Aubameyang, it was a much more reserved. Just mainly talked about his health, nothing on his future. Now, listening to a lot of Arsenal fans, they think that he'll never play for the club again. But that race for the top four is wide open. Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham and Arsenal. We know they want another striker, Dusan Vlahovic, but if he doesn't play for Arsenal again, that leaves them light.
We've had another tweet here saying if Aubameyang goes, surely that means another striker might be coming in. But if you look at their striking options, Michael, so Aubameyang at the moment not playing. Lacazette is playing, but out of contract at the end of the season. Nketiah out of contract at the end of the season. Balogun was sent out on loan to Middlesbrough only last week. That does sound like they would need to bring someone in if he is going. What do you think?
They'd absolutely have to. Yeah, I mean, we know they want Dusan Vlahovic, who's a serious striker. He's been phenomenal for Fiorentina this season. You get the feeling that Arsenal know that they have to sign in this January, because in the summer you imagine major European clubs are going to come in for him. But you just get the impression from Arteta that is there a future there for Aubameyang?
Well, I tell you what, they are actually looking for a central midfielder as well, because Arsenal want to sign Juventus central midfielder Arthur on loan. Now, the Brazilian's representatives were in London yesterday for talks with the club, but at the moment it's not just interest, it's an inquiry, face-to-face talks as they aim to thrash out a deal. Emma, so we've talked about the striker situation. Why do they need a central midfielder?
Well, this is arguably their actual priority at the moment because they've had a bit of a crisis in midfield. Of course, they've had Mohamed El Neni and Thomas Partey away at the Africa Cup of Nations. Yes, Thomas Partey is coming back. Arsenal fans be happy about that one because Ghana, of course, suffered that shock exit a couple of days ago. They let Ainsley Maitland-Niles go out on loan to Roma for the rest of the season. And then you also look at Arsenal at the moment as well. I mean, of course, Granit Xhaka got sent off last week, wasn't it, in the Carabao Cup, that first leg against Liverpool. So he's not always available, and then you've only really got Albert Sambi-Lokonga, the only sort of senior central midfielder at the club.
He's young and quite inexperienced anyway.
Yeah. And we saw, of course, the game got postponed. Martin Odegaard was the player that tested positive for COVID. So, like I said, I mean, midfield is quite possibly the priority area at the moment for Arsenal. And you mentioned those talks there. I mean, there are reports of a meeting between his agent and Arsenal yesterday. Juventus asking for an 18-month loan plus buy option to let him actually leave the club. Arsenal have offered just a straight loan until the end of the season. It sounds like the player is keen on a move, but nothing agreed yet. And this is a player who's been a long-term target of Edu. We've spoken a lot about him on this show. I mean, we've had Tim Vickery, who's a kind of South American expert on the show, talk about him and his time at Gremio, also about his time at Barca and Juve and how it hasn't really worked out. But those Gremio days, I mean, Tim's been on the show saying he was called the next Iniesta, and that was, you know, him going to Barcelona. He was thought to solve those problems, and hasn't worked out in Europe for him yet, but Vickery's saying, look, he would be a really good fit under Mikel Arteta, and there's a real player in there, real talent in there.
Absolutely, and talking about the Barcelona days, funnily enough, Xavi actually was quoted as saying, Arteta can mark an era at Barcelona. That's how highly thought of he went to the club. So he comes potentially to Arsenal, if a deal should happen, with a great pedigree. He won the Copa America in 2019, he won La Liga as well. He's an excellent midfielder, he's versatile, and one of the great things about him, he can be a box-to-box midfielder, someone who can just sit in front of the back four, someone that can get forward and find those gaps with his passing ability. So he would bring something very different to that Arsenal midfield. And it's very rare you get a midfielder that's so agile and technically gifted that can unlock a defence but also stop it going in at the other end as well, because he has that in his locker room, and that's the great thing about the player. You don't play for Juventus and Barcelona if you've not got some serious ability.
Yeah, it sounds like the way that Mark was saying it there, Michael, if he can play box to box, he can sit in front of the back four as well. That does give them options there as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, I think Mikel Arteta deserves credit as well, because there was a lot of criticism for his signings in the summer. You know, Aaron Ramsdale, Benjamin White. But
worked out all right.
Yeah, these are two players that could play for Arsenal for the next 10 years. I
think it's one of those situations. I think that the start to their Premier League season, 3 defeats in the first 4 games in all competitions, you're looking at it thinking, and they've had an indifferent at the time window, but this is where the talent has come to the table. Aaron Ramsdale was a player I watched, a huge amount at Bournemouth. I watched him play for Wimbledon in a relegation scrap. I watched him play for Chesterfield, and he was all about character and personality, everything the Arsenal fans love about him. And the same for Ben White, released from Southampton, superb at Leeds on loan, and then of course Brighton he developed yet again. So Arsenal have got a very clear plan when it comes to signing players, and I think the fans and everyone in the watching football public just have to back that at the moment, because it's coming to the table.
I just think the key is the striking department. The last few months, there's games. A few clubs have got games in hand. And if Aubameyang isn't wanted by Arteta, surely they've got to bring someone in.
The striking department is what everyone's tweeting us about. Actually, there's someone
tie
here.
Down Lacazette as well.
Yeah, that's something that needs to be sorted too, because he is playing well. But Draka says Aubameyang's finished. If the rumours surrounding Vlahovic are true, then we're moving on. I'd much prefer to use Mika Bireth from the under-23s. He's a real talent. I've heard a lot about him, having never seen him. I've heard a lot about him, though, a young striker. I think he's only about 17. Jake says, I think Aubameyang doesn't have a future at Arsenal. I think the best option is to let him go on loan to refresh and start again. Then Arsenal can review the situation in the summer. And Phil says Aubameyang will not play for Arsenal again. We're better without him. We need to move him on and get on without him. OK, so much more on Arsenal, probably in transfer talk at lunchtime, but the Women's Ashes has started today. Remember, it's a multi-format competition. You've got T20s. You've got 3 T20s, 1 Test, and 3 ODIs. And rather than just the men's Ashes where it's 5 Tests, it's all done on a point system on all 3 formats, all counting before. Australia just watched a review, by the way, but England are going well. This is the start of it. Tammy Beaumont went for 30 caught and bowled from King of 24 balls. Alana King, that is. Danny Wyatt is still there on 63 not out as England have passed their 100. Nat Siver is there as well on 5 not out. So 106 for 1 from 13 overs. Good start this for England. Coming up in Good Morning Transfers, we'll be focusing on Tottenham as that dramatic win over Leicester last night, thanks to a player who looked like he may be leaving the club.
more passionate than any other set of fans, particularly during this transfer window at the moment.
You're going to get some
Any
grief for that,
other-
Mark.
any other-
That was
I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest.
That was dangerous.
They are very passionate, and they are keen to see signings. When the takeover happened, you knew that they were keen to see the big names go to the northeast, and I think Jesse Lingard could certainly be classed as a big name. What do we know? Well, this came out just after we came off air yesterday on Transfer Talk. Newcastle have made an approach to Manchester United for Jesse Lingard, who is out of contract in the summer and has no interest in renewing his deal at Old Trafford. Lingard is believed to be interested, that's key, in considering any offer from Newcastle, and could favour a permanent switch to St James's Park. So a player, we all know about him as a player, we all know about his qualities, but it feels like this one has legs, Michael.
He's 29. He'll look at it and think, I'm completely wasting my time on the bench. And he wasn't even on the bench last night. The impact he made for West Ham United, of course, has attracted West Ham again and Spurs. But look, for Newcastle, can they afford the loan fee? Yes. Can they pay all his wages? Yes. Is it a no-brainer for Eddie Howe? Yes. When we talk about Newcastle United, when we say what do they need? Well, everyone, every position, don't we? Pretty much.
We have been, yeah, we have.
I mean, when Trippier's come in, we know there wasn't really anyone to replace there. Chris Wood, there's injuries for Newcastle. Imagine the buzz Newcastle players will get if Jesse Lingard comes in. As I say, 29, he doesn't want to waste his time on the bench or not being in the squad at all.
From his point of view, though, Mark, Emma or Michael, doesn't matter who, he's out of contract at the end of the season. They said that he would favour a permanent switch now. Why would he favour a permanent switch now when he can wait and go for free at the end of the season, which normally means that you've got more offers, more choice and more wages?
Yeah, and you could have the whole situation, if you're getting a permanent deal then, a signing on fee, all these other financial implications come in as well. So it's a good question.
But I guess Newcastle do have the finances to do anything they could do in the summer. I suppose they could do it now.
I think it says a lot about Jesse Lingard as a character, as a personality. He could wait 6 months, waste away another chunk of his career by not playing, as Michael said, not even getting on the bench at the moment for Manchester United. Or he could just go and play football now and be a part of a special project, which Newcastle clearly is and is one for the future. So I think that shows a lot about his character, his willingness to play football. And of course, put himself in Gareth Southgate's thinking for the World Cup. You know, he wants to be settled before the summer. Does he want, you know, a potential free transfer and a great signing on fee to drag on until the last knockings of the summer window? Or would he rather be set up and ready to go? He's got a young family and know exactly what he's doing from this moment so he can plan for the summer and, of course, for the World Cup.
And it's really interesting, Mark saying about his professionalism. What did Gareth Southgate say when he picked the England squad? I think he played in a friendly after the squad was picked, and Jesse Lingard knew he wasn't going to be involved in the Euros.
Yeah.
So what Newcastle are going to be getting a captain without a leader, someone to look up to.
Yeah.
But
It's what you want in a relegation fight, isn't it? You've got to remember as well, you mentioned his age. I mean, the massive Premier League experience he's got. Just looking at his stats, 158 Premier League appearances. He's the kind of player you want in a relegation fight. And you say about Newcastle, 20 goals in 20 games this season. They need goals. You mentioned how well he did when he went on loan to West Ham a year ago. We also know he's been away from Manchester United, of course, a club he's been at since he was 8 years old, but he can go somewhere else and flourish as well, and that's exactly what he did at West Ham. I will just mention from the Manchester United perspective as well, because of course he is out of contract in June, and you know, this could be at the moment United's only realistic chance of actually securing a fee for him. I think when he went to West Ham on loan, I think the fee was around about £1.5 million for Lingard to sign on loan. Reports as well saying that Newcastle would pay the £100,000 a week, you know, wages for the rest of his United contract. So look, it's a big decision. You touched on it. It's one for the player to make. You know, he's been at Manchester United for a long time. We've seen him go away from the club. I remember speaking to someone close to Lingard at the time when he went to West Ham, and they said it was a new lease of life for him. You know, it almost gave him the belief that he can still go out there and do it as well. I think the England squad thing is a massive thing. He fought back to that, appeared for England for the first time in 2 years when he got back into Gareth Southgate's plans, and was so close to making the Euro squad, wasn't he? So it's 10 months away now, the World Cup. So that's got to be part of his thinking, hasn't it?
Well, the Newcastle fans haven't disappointed, by the way, because they really have got in touch. There are too many to read.
told you.
We like it like
you.
that. Well, actually, someone called Mickey says, thank you, Mark. All right, 'cause he liked what you said there. He said, Jesse would be a legend at the two, and his goals and creativity, no-brainer. Geordie Spartan says, Jesse walks into our team. If he's fit, he plays in a World Cup year. It's a no-brainer. Rob says... personally, this is quite a good point here from Robbie. He says, personally, I think that Newcastle's perseverance to get the right price should be applauded. Once they overpay a ridiculous amount of money, there's no going back. I think that's something that we've said before. That's a good point. Daniel says he thinks Tottenham should go for Jesse Lingard. Jamie says Newcastle need a magician like Lingard. We also need 2 centre-backs and a central midfielder, and also Dean Henderson in goal. And another Newcastle fan here says that Lingard would be a great signing. Hopefully more breakthroughs next week. Centre-back, central midfielder and striker.
Tottenham like him. But Manchester United aren't going to loan him to Tottenham Hotspur, a direct rival for the top 4. Are they going to loan him back to West Ham? Hold on a minute. West Ham United are a direct rival for the top 4. But when does it get to the point where they say, yeah, we don't want you playing for them, but you're not playing for us? That's the key for me here. He's not getting on the bench. A bit like Donny van der Beek. You know, I can imagine they'll be interested in him on deadline day. Another fantastic player. And we always say, don't we, reputations always go up when they're not playing. What can this player bring to this team? But you put him in West Ham United's team right now, and they've got a real boost to the top 4.
Would you say he could be a boost to any team outside the top 4?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Any team in the Premier League. Yeah. And the great thing about Jesse Lingard, and I think you can answer this yourself, Tom, in the North East, they want to connect with the players. They want to have a relationship with the players. They want to feel like the players care about the team.
He's going to get the freedom of the city in a minute.
There's another thanks Mark here as well. There's Mark is a legend.
I don't know about that.
You've got the Newcastle fans on side here, Mark.
Is that another plus for Jesse Lingard going to Newcastle, that connection with the fans, because of the type of person and personality he is?
Yes, definitely. But he had that connection with West Ham. So before we move on, I want to ask Emma, what must West Ham be thinking about all this? Because we know how much the fans have been tweeting us saying how much they want Jesse Lingard back. Governor B put it on his song.
How badly do they want him back?
How badly do they want him back?
The
fact that he has that connection with the West Ham fans is exactly, you're right, what the fans in the North East absolutely thrive on. But West Ham fans must be thinking, come on.
Yeah, well, that's down to the club, isn't it? I mean, we saw Jesse Lingard go to West Ham. Not only did he do incredibly well on the pitch, I mean, he had a good relationship with David Moyes. He's worked with him a couple of times now, not just the once. And he had a really good relationship with the other players as well. It wasn't really just on the pitch and to do with footballing matters. We saw his bromance with Declan Rice and just a relationship with other players. So I get why Governor B is writing songs about him right now.
Yeah, I think he had to take that line out of his effect, didn't he, in the end? Right, loads more to come. Thank you for all those tweets, Newcastle fans. We will be talking about you again on Transfer Talk, especially. And in fact, later on the show, hopefully we'll talk about your search for a centre-back as well. Plenty more on the way, though. We've got our out-of-contract 11. That's in the summer. Who would make your team? It's going to be a good talking point between us. Manchester last night. We're joined by sports broadcaster and Tottenham fan Samantha Miller. Good morning to you. Samantha, what a comeback last night for Tottenham. Stephen Bergwijn scored twice in stoppage time to help beat Leicester 3-2. Antonio Conte said after the game he thinks Bergwijn is happy to stay at the club. Do you expect him to stay?
Good morning. Happy to be on this morning, and what a win in the end. And who would have thought Bergwijn to save the day? And I think that shows intent that maybe he wants to stay. And I have to say, Conte was so complimentary about Bergwijn after the game that it sort of almost gives an indication that he wants to keep him at the club. But I guess if he does go, that facilitates room for new players. So it's quite surprising. But Conte said that they don't have many creative players, and Bergwijn is one of them. He can play in a number of positions. He can play forward, number 10, and he looks to take players on 1v1, which is something Conte is looking for. But for me, he doesn't contribute enough when he does play in terms of goals, assists, and what he does on the pitch. But it's looking like after those comments, he is likely to stay, although there are interests from other clubs.
Well, Japhet Tanganga and Matt Doherty can come under that bracket as well, can't they? They featured last night despite being linked with a move away. What do you think? Would a move suit them?
I think a move away would suit them, but you look at someone like Doherty, who actually plays as a wing-back, which is what Conte's looking for. And I just think that means that Conte's potentially not that interested in Doherty. Although he did create 5 chances last night, he got an assist, he probably played arguably one of his best games in a Spurs shirt. But if Tottenham are to bring in a different wing-back option, then I think Conte would rather Doherty went to another club for now. But for me, he's not really been given a fair chance. And he's come from Wolves, where he's played really well there in the system that they play. And potentially he could suit Conte's system. But I think potentially better options out there.
Well, what about incomings? We've been linked. Tottenham have been linked with Adama Traore and Paulo Dybala. Would any of those be good signings? And where do Tottenham need to strengthen?
So if you look at someone like Dybala, Tottenham potentially were looking to get him in 2019, as were Manchester United. Dybala was very loyal to Juventus. And you could say that if he now comes, we're in a position where it's most likely this time, because Juventus have said they're going to give him a contract extension, put out on the table what's to offer. And then they've gone back and said they want to relook at that negotiation. And I can imagine that's not really impressed Dybala, which means he could potentially now come to Spurs. And I would definitely want to bring in a player like that, a forward with lots of class, can score goals, scored over 100 goals for Juventus, and could link up well with Harry Kane. And wanting to see a striking partnership up top, I think could be that.
Yeah, OK, Samantha, we just lost you at the end there with your audio. We were going to chat about the WSL, but we'll do that a little bit later on. But Samantha, thank you very much. We're going to talk Tottenham now with Michael, Emma and Mark. So, Mark, we're just discussing Bergwijn's future there. Does that performance mean either one, he's not available anymore, or just two, his valuation's gone up?
It's difficult to know what it means, because one performance, 90 minutes, one impact substitute can change your whole life. And that might sound dramatic, but that's literally the case with a lot of footballers. Let's tell you about the situation as we know it. Spurs had rejected a £15 million bid from Ajax earlier this month for the Dutchman, but the clubs have remained in talks over a potential deal. So it wasn't a flat-out rejection. I think at one stage, Michael, we were all made aware that Stephen Bergwijn's days in North London were coming to an end, and the club had accepted that. It was just about finding the right deal for the player. It seemed like Ajax would be the destination for him, but now maybe last night's changed things.
It's quite incredible, really, a potential huge turnaround. Stephen Bergwijn was one of 4 I expected to be potentially leaving this month, with Tanguy on Dembele, Matt Doherty, we'll come to him in a minute, and Dele Alli. Now, Bergwijn came on last night, he made an instant impact, and those 2 goals really will put him back in Antonio Conte's thinking. Antonio Conte speaking at the end of the game, he said, look, I'm trying to work with Stephen Bergwijn, but he's had niggly injuries as well over the last few weeks. Ajax do want him, but I'll be so intrigued now to see what they do with him. The value's certainly going to rise, but it's interesting because Antonio Conte mentioned in the club's in-house channel that he also sees him as a striker. Tottenham don't have a second striker. Heung-min Son is out for a few weeks, so very interesting to see, but fantastic performance from Bergwijn at the end, and a big win for Tottenham in the chase for the top 4.
A lot of Tottenham fans have been getting in touch actually saying that they would like Bergwijn to stay and keep being given a chance after that performance last night. I can understand why. Right, those of you at home, hashtag transfer talks. I think you might enjoy this next feature we're going to do. We've looked at players who are out of contract at the end of this season, and I cannot believe the amount of quality on show. Between the 4 of us, we've put together an 11. You might be angry at some of the names that aren't on that 11 because, like I say, there is an incredible amount of players out of contract at the end of the season who usually would be worth a fortune. Right, so there's the team we've picked. Don't worry about the formation and such like. It just had to fit them in somehow, didn't we? Hugo Lloris, Cesar Azpilicueta, Andreas Christensen, Antonio Rudiger, Alessio Romagnoli playing out of position at left-back, Jesse Lingard and Kylian Mbappe on the wings, Frank Kessié and Paul Pogba in midfield, Paulo Dybala and Alexandre Lacazette up front. Michael, who stands out?
Well, look, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that team, and it could probably make at least the knockout stages of the Champions League. It is some side, and no doubt you're going to get in touch with us and tell us the players we've actually missed out on. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But look, I'll start on Hugo Lloris because he's been a fantastic servant for Tottenham Hotspur, and Antonio Conte certainly doesn't want to lose him. He wants to completely change Tottenham Hotspur's squad, and he doesn't really want the added problem of getting a new goalkeeper. They're very happy with him, and I'm told Hugo Lloris is very happy to stay at Spurs, so I'd imagine he stays. But wow, what a team.
Very worrying for Chelsea fans, though, when you look at that back 4, because 3 of them are from Chelsea.
Mad. It's mad, isn't it? And look, I mean, Chelsea fans might be annoyed at their recent form. They might be even more annoyed looking at that graphic that we put out this morning with 3 defenders in there. Chelsea boss Thomas Tuchel has always said, look, he wants them to stay, but he's only the head coach, isn't he? It's, you know, he can only do so much, really. He's going to continue to pick these players, but then I suppose it's up to the club, down to the representatives of the players to kind of try and sort out a deal. Darmish was talking on the transfer show last night about Antonio Rudiger and his situation, saying that his reps they're talking numbers at the moment, and hard numbers as well, with the likes of Real Madrid, with PSG, with Bayern Munich. So look, signing a pre-contracted agreement this month or before the end of the season with another club has not been ruled out at the moment. As far as Antonio Rudiger is concerned, look, he's just focusing on his football. He's leaving all of that kind of stuff up to his representatives. But look, I mean, a decision could be left until the summer as well. And then he's a free agent. I'll just quickly as well bring you up to date on Andreas Christensen, because reports out there suggesting that he has had an offer from Chelsea on the table, yet to accept that, and also with Azpilicueta. Seems to have gone a little bit quiet around him as well. Barcelona, one of the clubs reportedly interested. Could they look to make a move in the summer as well? They'll want a free agent, won't they, with their finance issues?
The quality of that team is amazing. It's even more amazing when I'm about to, I think between Mark and I, we're about to list 19 players who could have made it into that. All of these players will be available for absolutely nothing in the summer if they don't sign a new contract. You name a few, Mark, and I'll name whichever ones you've missed out.
It's difficult to know where to start. We were talking about Ousmane Dembele at Barcelona on the show yesterday. They're getting frustrated that he's not signed a new deal, but what a player he would be on a free transfer in the summer. You've got the likes of Premier League players, Tarkowski at Burnley. We know there was a big money move made for him from West Ham, which was rejected by Burnley. Leicester were showing some interest as well. Callum Chambers, Adnan Januzaj, remember when he was the future, the darling of Old Trafford, the man that they were going to hang all their hopes on to win them titles at one stage when he broke into that first team. Just Michael, Emma, so many players, we can't even get into our 11.
I'll tell you what, I'll read a few more out there. There's Brozovic in central midfield as well. I think he's at Inter Milan. You've already mentioned Ousmane Dembele. There's Surla, who's a centre-back. I think he might be a Bayern, is he? Andrea Belotti, the striker at Torino. You've mentioned Tarkowski. There's Matis Hinter. I think he's at Dortmund. Callum Chambers, Adnan Januzaj, Luka Modric out of contract at the end of the season.
He was told by the Real Madrid president he had a lifetime contract. So he could sign for as long as he wanted. He'd always be welcome.
I think that'll be completely up to Modric whether he stays or goes in the summer. Eddie Nketiah, who we mentioned earlier. Divock Origi just missed out on the actual final 11 that we put up.
And we know a number of Premier League clubs have been interested in him this month.
Yeah, exactly. And it would make sense as well, and maybe for Liverpool too, to get a bit of money depending on whether they think they need him for the next 6 months. Sean Longstaff from Newcastle out of contract, was heavily linked with Everton, but now that Rafael Benitez has gone, his old manager at Newcastle, don't know whether that will still happen. Angel Di Maria, Corentin Tolisso, Onana, the goalkeeper, Ivan Perisic, Sam Johnson, another goalkeeper, Sergio Roberto from Barcelona, Axel Witsel as well, and there are more as well.
Well, then going back into the formation as well, we mentioned Frank Kessie. Don't be too surprised if he ends up in North London this summer.
But wearing white rather than red is what the latest rumours are.
Oh, yeah. But Arsenal are red and white, aren't they? Nah. We'll see.
Absolutely, but keep those coming in, because I think we might even carry this into transfer talk as well, because so many people get in touch with out-of-contract players. I think a lot of people are also very surprised at the amount of players who will be available for free at the end of the season. Like we were saying with Jesse Lingard, you get more offers when you're out of contract because there's no fee involved. That's why people might wait for him and all those other players on that list. Right, now it's time to test your knowledge with a little teaser this morning. Today's quiz question is all about a player who made 3 January moves in his career. He started his career at Crystal Palace before moves to Wigan, Chelsea, Liverpool, Stoke, West Ham, Fenerbahce, Inter Milan and Spartak Moscow. But do you know who it is? Get involved. Tweet us at Sky Sports News. Use the hashtag TransferTalk. before the break, we asked you if you knew who this player was. He played for Palace, Wigan, Chelsea, Liverpool, Stoke, West Ham, Fenerbahce, Inter Milan, and currently at Spartak Moscow. Right, Ryan, David, Mahia, Liam, Harry, Razor, Governor B, he's watching, he got it right. Beardy Bumpkin got it right. Kane got it right. Jake got it right. Mark, Chris, James, Dave. Mahia's done it twice just to make sure. Ferry got it right as well. So did Ryan. So did David. And so did Michael Bridge. Well done, because the answer was Victor Moses. That is our player. I love those little questions like that. And you did at home too. And you did very, very well in getting that right. Right, before the break, we were given that out of contract 11, and someone who didn't quite make the 11 was Ousmane Dembele. Well, incredibly, in that break, we've got an update on him because Barcelona have told him he will be sold this month. Why? Because he's refusing to sign a new contract. They signed him for £135 million in 2017. They don't want to lose him for nothing in the summer, but they also want to get his wages off their books. The new contract he refused to sign was on reduced terms. He's not in their squad for the game at Athletic Bilbao tonight. In fairness, he's had terrible injury problems lately, but Barcelona have said if you're not going to sign that new contract, you will be sold this month. OK, we'll keep an eye on that. We did promise to talk about Newcastle's search for a centre-back. They're competing with a second Premier League club to secure the signing of Diego Carlos from Sevilla. Newcastle are understood to have made an offer of £30 million for him, which has now been matched by a Premier League rival who we haven't been able to find out as yet who that is. Right, but Emma, if that other club isn't involved in a relegation battle, and you know my thoughts, I think Newcastle will get out of this relegation battle, but right now they are in one.
Hurts you to say that, doesn't it?
If the other club isn't in one, does that give them the advantage for Diego Carlos?
Look, it makes it more difficult, doesn't it? I mean, there are Newcastle fans out there who were hoping he'd be signed before the Leeds game, even. That obviously isn't going to happen. What we know and what Kaveh Solokol said on the transfer show last night is that Newcastle, they're still in the driving seat at the moment. There are loads of people involved in the deal and people that are trying to make this happen and trying to bring him to Newcastle. It's funny because as soon as you hear that another club is involved, I was sitting there kind of scratching my head last night saying, well, who's the other club? And I tried to whittle it down. I was thinking, could it be Aston Villa? We know they've only got 3 first-team centre-backs at the moment in terms of Tyrone Mings, Ezri Konsa and Courtney Hawes. I was thinking, could it be Leicester? We know they've had some defensive issues. They're pushing to make Europe this season. Could it be West Ham as well? Because even on the weekend against Leeds, I think David Moyes, he couldn't even name another senior centre-back on his bench. Zuma's out, Ogbona's out. And then, a minute ago, we looked at that out-of-contract 11, and I'm thinking, could Chelsea even be in for them? Do they need a centre-back? So, look, it's going to be interesting.
Inspector Payton.
Well, Chelsea
normally gets it right.
Chelsea's an interesting one because they've wanted Jules Koundé from Seville for such a long time. But look, Mark, you know Eddie Howe well. He wants the right characters, doesn't he? But he'll be pleased to hear that this player wants to join Newcastle United. Now, Eddie Howe, I spoke to him a few weeks ago in a press conference. He was really, sticking up with his defenders. Kieran Clark getting sent off against Norwich. But that was a key game to lose points. Key game to lose points against Watford on Saturday as well. They can get out of it, Tom, but they're running out of games where you expect them to win at home. That will be the worry for him. And they've conceded 43 goals. Mark, they need to sort that defence out.
Absolutely, you're so right in what you say there. And yeah, just to further develop what you said, Eddie Howe has said quite publicly he wants players that want to buy into the football club. They're not just going for the money. That's something that the fans are really keen to see the board do in the right way as well. Don't just chuck money at players and hope for the best. Get players that want to join this football club. The fact that Diego Carlos has handed in a transfer request to the Sevilla manager and president over the course of this week gives you an indication where his kind of thought process is. He's keen on the Newcastle project. He's keen to come to the Premier League. And clearly he wants to be a part of this Newcastle setup. Very different profile to perhaps what Eddie would have gone for in the past, because normally he likes to do his business within the UK domestic market, but clearly a player with huge experience, playing for Brazil and, of course, in La Liga. He's going to be bringing in something that they don't have at the minute.
We know they've made inquiries as well for other players. How many Premier League clubs are saying, look, we're not dealing with Newcastle unless we get a huge, huge fee. They're a direct rival. And let's face it, like Diego Carlos, next season, he's a kind of player I would have expected Newcastle to go for if they stayed up. So it's an ambitious one, but very, very intriguing.
They've got an absolutely huge game against Leeds away on Saturday. Right, just before we finish this show, we've got a great story for you. Mark, you've covered loads of transfers over the years, but there's one that stands out. Tell us about George Taylor.
Yeah, George Taylor, happy birthday. You are 102 years old today. Now, a couple of years ago, I got called into the office and said, right, can you cover this story? It's a brand new signing. Cray Wanderers are signing a player who is going to be 100 years old. And I thought, what's all this about? It turns out he played for Cray before the war. So before the 1939-45 Second World War, he played for Cray. And approaching his 100th birthday, he was asked, what would you like to do for your 100th birthday? He said, I would like to play for Cray one more time. So what did Cray do? They signed him up.
Yes, Cray.
He was on the pitch before the game. He kicked a football. He signed the official paperwork. He was on the team sheet. And, of course, he got to meet all the team. And today, he is 102. So when people say to me, what's your favourite transfer you've ever covered? George Taylor going back to Cray 70 years after he started there.
George, I think from all of us, a very, very happy birthday to you, and completely understand why that's your favourite ever transfer. Right, this has been Good Morning Transfers. It returns tomorrow at 9 a.m, as it is every weekday up until deadline day, which is less than 2 weeks away now. We are back, me, Michael, Emma and Mark, at midday for Transfer Talk for an hour. And tonight, 2 more transfer shows for you. As ever, it's with Darmasheth and Carve Solical, 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And that news that Ousmane Dembele is being told by Barcelona he will be sold this month because he hasn't signed a new contract. Football show is next. Plenty of reaction to the incredible drama at the King Power Stadium. Stephen Bergwijn secures a late win for Tottenham. Rob Watton is coming up.